and what is next. So we have a great champion and advocate, not only of our tobacco crop, but of all the issues that are important to your livelihood and economy and common sense needs. And please help welcome, for his first opportunity to speak to us in the capacity as United States Senate, the Honorable Thom Tillis.
Thank you, Graham. I want to let you know before I shake your hand, I did wash my hands. I thank you all for giving me an opportunity to be back. This is the first large group that I've spoken to since I became U.S. Senator. I'll start with a little joke. There was a traveler going down the road. They weren't paying attention. They run their car into a ditch. There was a farmer out in the fields with a big old horse named Buddy. Big, strong horse. He carried the horse over. He told the driver he'd pull that car out of the ditch for him. So he hitched the horse up to the car, and the farmer yelled, "Pull, Nellie, pull." Horse's name was Buddy. Buddy didn't move. So he said, "Pull, Buster, pull." Buddy still didn't move. Finally, he just yelled real loud, "Pull, Coco, pull." Buddy didn't budge a bit. Then he stopped for a minute. He said, "Okay, Buddy, pull." Buddy pulled that car straight out of the ditch. The driver said, "Sir, I thank you so much for your generosity. Thank you for doing that, but I just got to wonder, why'd you call that horse the wrong name 3 different times?" Farmer said, "Well, you probably didn't notice, but Buddy's blind, and if he'd known he was the only horse pulling that car out, he'd have never done it." Well, I know a lot of times y'all feel like you're pulling the cart alone, but you're not. The reason that I requested being on agriculture is I think you are the most important industry in North Carolina. You have been for the history of North Carolina. And I, along with David Rouser and Steve Troxler and Senator Burr, are here to pull this cart with you. It's not that hard, and we're going to get progress made in Washington like the progress we've made in North Carolina. I also want to thank J.H. and Brent and Andrew for being here today, and Jimmy Dixon, who couldn't be here today. What great leaders in the legislature. If I could lift up the mentality that we've had over the last 4 years in the North Carolina legislature and bring it to Washington, we'd solve a lot of problems. What I need to do now that I'm in Washington is try and promote that same sort of spirit of taking the burdens off of you all's back so you can get what you're doing or get back to work. Particularly in these times when it's going to be tough. We all know that world supply is up, demand's down, and you're not as likely to make as much money in 2015 as you did in 2014. So what can we do to ease that burden? We can do it just by using some common sense. Anybody can get this job on 8 hours of sleep. And anybody that pays attention, as I have, to agriculture over the last 8 years that I was in the legislature, it's not that hard. You just need to get out there and talk with farmers, as I have. Graham's right. I'm up in Mecklenburg County, up on Lake Norman, but I've spent the majority of my time traveling across this state and getting to know people like Jerome Vick and David Rose and Lawrence Davenport and Frank Granger. Frank Granger, incidentally, is an exercise in courage because I decided to drive across the state with Frank driving. Don't do that. He refuses to put his phone down. But what he did do is bring me to a lot of farmers and let me hear a lot of their stories. And that was long before I became Speaker. So that when I got into the position to where we could start driving policy that made sense, we started doing that. Little things like DMV and the burdens that they were placing on you all. Lots of other things with the Farm Bill that Brent and Andrew and J.H. and Jimmy moved through. We got to do more of that up in Washington. That's why I requested the Agriculture Committee. There were 3 committees that I requested. I got on 5. But there were 3 committees I requested that I told my leader if I could be on nothing else, if I could do nothing else, there were 3 committees I wanted to be on. Armed Services and Veterans I have to be on. It's about our nation's safety and security, and it's about making sure that we do for the veterans what we should for somebody who swears to lay down their life to defend our freedom. And then there's agriculture. I am proud to be on agriculture. I went to Senator Roberts from Kansas when we first met, And he wanted to sit down and talk with the individual members and kind of get an idea of where we were coming from, why we wanted to be on the committee, because he knew I'd been lobbying to be on agriculture actually before I even got elected. And he said, so what's your, I know you want to do a lot of things, but what's your primary goal? And y'all may not know this, but Kansas is just slightly ahead of us in terms of agriculture output. So he asked me, he said, what would you like to accomplish over the next year or two? I said, beat Kansas in agriculture output. And he kind of looked at me funny. He said, that's good. Competition's good. Well, I said, I know, Senator Roberts, if I'm doing the kinds of policies that make sure my farmers in North Carolina are doing better, you're going to work hard to make sure your farmers in Kansas are doing better. And that's going to make every state in this nation improve and really let us continue to be what we are for the world. I mean, we're the breadbasket of the world. We're an agriculture our agriculture output needs to grow. I keep on telling Steve Troxler, I'm still mad at him. We're only at 80 billion. I wanted to be at 100 billion before I left. How are we going to get there? I think we get there just by using common sense. And I'm with David. I'll tell you that there is no way that I will vote for a Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement that has tobacco as a carve-out, period, end of story. And we need to send that message to the White House, we need to send that message to Congress, and we need to make it very clear that the things that David talked about are real. If you start here, what's next? And as far as I'm concerned, if it's a legal product and it's something that's coming out of the ground in North Carolina, we should be able to export it anywhere in this world. And I'm going to work hard to do that. And I believe that the leadership in the House and the leadership in the Senate will stand behind us, and we'll be successful. I tell you that you can already see in the president's budget, I don't know if you all know this, the president's proposed another cigarette tax in his budget. Now, we were told several years ago the Affordable Care Act was on sound financial footing, it was going to pay for itself. But now we're already finding another tax to pay for a policy that failed. It can't fulfill the promise it's making to folks. And now what they're going to try and do is just put one more burden on the backs of many people in this room and across this country, and we can't allow that to happen. What I also want to do is just talk about regulation. So Grant was talking about the comment I made earlier this morning. I do this, JH knows this, I get into a caucus meeting, I'll get a little crazy in the way I try to describe things, but the reason I do that is to communicate a serious point. We are regulated to death. And I use the example of saying, guys, can't we at least think about some regulations to where maybe we say this regulation exists? But if I got a farmer or a business or someone else who says, I'm willing to say, I'm going to opt out of that regulation. And I'm willing to tell to the average person that I'm not going to have that regulation imposed on me because I don't think it makes sense. Well, I use the hand washing example because that happens to be one that makes a hell of a lot of sense. And so if you opt out, the market would decide and you'd go out of business. But there are so many regulations that we have people in Washington in a vacuum. A lot of people have never even set foot on a farm that they think is necessary. And I don't agree. And I believe that you all have the best interest of the American people and the world consumers in mind. You all want a healthy food supply. You want a clean environment. How many of y'all are hunters? Yeah. I mean, y'all want abundant wildlife resources out there, right? You want clean water. You want clean air. I see these children here. Is there anybody in this room that honestly thinks that I'm a member of Congress that wants to go up there and destroy the water quality or destroy the air quality for myself, an avid camper and a hunter, and for these children? Absolutely not. What we're talking about is just having government make sense. And you all, I want to tell you, I came up in the technology sector. You turn on the TV, everybody's talking about these courageous entrepreneurs in technology. And you know what? There's some great things going on. But I don't think that there is any industry that impresses me more as entrepreneurs than you guys. Because you have all the burdens of government on your back. You're one of the most regulated industries that's ever existed. And you also have the wild card of Mother Nature. And the fact that you are successful and you continue to do it year after year is amazing to me. Probably second only to the men and women in uniform as the people I'm most proud of and most proud to represent. So we got to work together. And what we've got to do is just think smart. We need to go into there and start questioning these regulations and taxes, these burdens that are placed on you that are hampering your ability to hire people and to provide food and to provide products that people want. Now, I'm one that I love baseball, and I'm one that thinks, I don't think there's a whole lot of home runs. Very few baseball games are really won on home runs. They may be the ones you remember, but they're not the majority of the games. We need to come up with a policy that lets us start hitting singles and doubles and start clawing back regulations, start clawing back tax burdens, start improving trade relations, start expanding markets so that you all can just go what you want to do. Get out of your offices and get back into the fields and enjoy what you love. And I'm going to do it. We're going to work hard with David. We're going to work hard with Senator Burr. Senator Burr shares his opinion. And what a wonderful person to have as a senior senator from North Carolina. And by the way, he'll be running again next year, and I hope you all will work hard to get him reelected because he's one of the most well-regarded senators in the U.S. Senate, and I'm proud to have him as somebody that I can learn from. I also want to thank Richard Hudson and all the other congressional delegation. We've got an amazing delegation, and I'm really intent on making sure we're getting together, we're working together, and we're using the size. I mean, for those of you who are Democrats, you may not want to hear this, but for those of you who are Republicans, you may be proud to know that we've got one of the largest Republican delegations of any Republican-led state in the nation. We need to use that for influence. We need to make sure that North Carolina is heard on these sorts of policies because it also happens to be policies that many other states embrace. I think in closing, but let me tell you, the only way we get this done is not to think that I have the solutions, not to think that David has the solutions. Y'all have the solutions. I'm going to stick around afterwards and listen to some of the presentations before Susan and I have to go back. And before I go any further, I also want to recognize my wife Susan is here with me. She's over here in the corner. If Susan had not been at my side over the last 18 months when I was running the campaign, there was no way I would have done this. I don't know. Y'all may have seen a commercial or two last year in the campaign. I've told a lot of people Wednesday morning, the day after the election, when I saw a toothpaste commercial, I got misty-eyed. It was just so good not to see me on TV, good or bad. But now I've got 6 years to make an impact. And people ask me, you enjoying what you're doing? I said, I've been there a month. It's a privilege. It's an honor to be a U.S. Senator. But I'll only be happy with my job if I can look back a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, and come into this room again next year. And like David, I've got that shadow box with the golden leaf in my office. I think about y'all every single day. I'll only be happy if I can come back here and say these words were translated into results. Not, well, I hope if you reelect me, I'll get it done 7 years from now. No. We owe it to you all to produce results. We owe it to you all to get this economy back on track. We owe it to you all to make this nation more safe and secure. And we can do it. And I believe that we will do it. So with your prayers and your knowledge, with your ideas on what we should do first, common sense ideas that I believe we can get Democrats on board with. Democrats and Republicans finally saying we've gone too far. We need to trust in our farmers. We need to trust in our American workers. We need to get this economy back on track, and we need to make this nation the great nation that we know it can be. And with your help and your prayers, we'll get it done. Thank you all. God bless you.
You guys may remember we gave one of these the first time a few years back to Governor Pat McCrory in a similar circumstance, one of his first agricultural large audiences here after becoming governor. And it is a commemorative print, and it reads to Senator Thom Tillis, an appreciation for your leadership, Tobacco Growers Association of North Carolina, February 6, 2015. We gave a similar one to Congressman Rouser. But the caption over here that the governor remarked on reads, "Workday Waiting." And for those who maybe can't make it out from the back, it's a Super 8 tractor, which we all know is a cornerstone of the American tobacco farm in terms of all of our generations in the room today, that represents always dependable piece of machinery to get the job done. So as you hang this somewhere highly visible, think of us and that your workday is waiting, and that we're like this field, we're working with you, and we're delighted that you're a dependable piece of equipment to always get the job done. So thank you, Senator. Senator Thom Tillis.
Y'all come visit me up in Washington. I would like to see every single one of you come by the office. We'll take a picture next to the golden leaf in this picture. Thank you.
Thank you.